And then Elijah took 12 stones for the 12 tribes of Israel and created the place of the fire. He dug a wedge around it and filled everything with water. All the wood became wet, everything was soaked with water. And he stood and very simply, with firmness, he said, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Israel, light a fire, please. Most of humanity, if you look in the big scale of humanity over history, believes in a spiritual tradition. So what's the catch? Why is it that most people believe in something that's apparently contradictory? Apparently matter is above spirit, and yet everybody believes, at least to a degree, in a spiritual tradition. One of the answers to this question is miracles. Miracles are basically an expression of mind over matter, and more than that, soul and spirit over matter. And those moments of spiritual miracles stand as the baseline of almost every spiritual tradition. It stands there in the core of the belief, and the belief is revealed. In accordance to that miracle, we can see that spirit is above matter in that way. Christ resurrected. The bush did not burn, and therefore reality is like that. So the miracles have a tremendous psychological importance and a tremendous factor of unity when it comes to all of world traditions.
We will talk in this first series of our lectures on epic spiritual moments about miracle competitions. One thing is you have a miracle, that's already very amazing. Miracles are like a proof for your spiritual size, if you will, for your spiritual accomplishment. But then a whole nother thing is if those miracles, they happen at will, summoned within the context of a competition where you are face to face with another super accomplished being. Within the lecture today, we want to give you a nice overview throughout different traditions and hopefully spark your interest in these accomplishments so that also you can start practicing in that direction. That is always the point in the end of the day.
And we will begin with the oldest prophet that we will speak about today, with Prophet Elijah, Eliyahu as he's called in the Jewish tradition. He is of the Jewish tradition, but very, very loved also in Christianity. He lived, so we have Moses, we have Judges, and then we have David, Solomon, about 900 years ago, 3,000 years ago, we have David, approximately. And after Solomon, the kingdom of Israel splits, Israel in the north and Judea in the south. And after some centuries of split, we have in Israel a king called Ahab, probably has an English way of pronouncing it, which I'm absolutely not aware of. Ahab, I don't know how you would say it. And he was, when the kings are described in the Bible, they were either doing good in the eyes of God or doing bad in the eyes of God. Ahab was doing bad in the eyes of God. He was married to a Phoenician woman who brought, or let's say rekindled in the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, this worship of the Baal. Baal, some say, is a god of fertility and so forth. It was quite common in that time in the Middle East. Is also considered a demon in many of the, especially in the Christian traditions and also in the Jewish ones. And you can see there are some very good movies about exorcism. There's one called The Rite, and there you see the demon that they exorcise is Baal. And also the Exorcism of Emily Rose. At least one of these, the Baal is the demon. So basically, the king and queen were promoting black magic, basically, in the land. And this was degenerating the people quite quickly. Elijah was born in the same time, and from a very young age, he begins practicing very severe austerities. He would go to the desert, he would pray, he would fast. And they would have, there is a very interesting book of Professor Elior, a Jewish professor, and he says these guys, they wouldn't just go to the desert and blabber. They had very, very clear mystical practices, which involved also astral projection and coming out of the body and going to the world of angels and receiving all sorts of initiations. Fascinating book if you get your hands on this. Elior is the name, Professor Elior, if you find it's really fascinating. So he was making a lot of very intense mystical practice, as Blandine mentioned, and through that he attained a very big spiritual awakening. Being awake in spirit and loving for the people and seeing how they degenerate, this is like one of the things that takes you very, very, very low. This whole dealing with black magic and adoring all sorts of things just for the sake of material gain or pleasure or whatever, revenge, whatever they were adoring for. He went and confronted the king and queen, and to everyone's surprise, they really didn't like it. And they started persecuting him. At a certain point, he says, from today, it will not rain until I say it will rain. And basically, he stopped the rain for 3.5 years. Not your orthodox miracle. He told them, guys, God first, and then your black magic. Look where it's leading you. And in that time he met a widow, he took care of her and the child died, he resurrected the child, he did a lot of miracles. And at a certain point he calls the so-called prophets of the Baal, or these black magicians, for a fight. He tells the king, bring 450 of those, and me alone, and go on Mount Carmel and bring the entire nation. So everybody that could come, I guess some people would stay at home. You come for the match today? No, I think I stay and watch the fire or something. I have some potatoes in the oven. Tell me how it went, who won. But a great number of people came to watch the Netflix of the time, the miracle competition, and there they were. The match was like this. They had a fire, like a fireplace, and an ox to sacrifice, and you were not allowed to light the fire in the orthodox way, which I don't know what they were doing, rubbing stones or whatever they were doing there, but only through prayer. And he said to the Baal, you know what, you start. So they all start, 450 prophets, and they shout to their God, and these magicians, they would give a certain emotional intensity to that entity. And that entity would give them a miracle. Now, being a dark practice, they would give a negative emotional intensity. They would hurt themselves, and they would bleed, and they would cut themselves, and wick themselves, and cry, and suffer to create that intensity. And Elijah was looking at them and cheering them and says, come on, you can do it. Shout harder, for sure yours is a God. But maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he's away, maybe he's meditating. Shout harder and you will succeed. And he was mocking them in that way, and after a while they did not light fire.
Wherever you're watching this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell and all the little buttons that you could possibly...
We encourage you to hit the bell.
And for sure subscribe also.
Subscribe. And then Elijah took 12 stones for the 12 tribes of Israel. And also, if you know from yoga, it's a particular number of the heart, and created the fire, or the place of the fire. He dug a wedge around it and filled everything with water. There was so much water, all the wood became wet, everything was soaked with water. And he stood next to the wood, and very simply, with firmness, he said, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Israel, light fire, please. And the fire grew so big, it wasn't just the wood who was burning, but the water was burning. Everything was burning in this tremendous mystical fire. When the spectators, the nation, whoever didn't stay home, saw this, they said, okay, enough with the Baal, we go with Elijah, we go back to the God of our fathers. And then, as was the style in the time, he commanded the people to take all the prophets of the Baal, take them down and kill them. It was a very harsh term, and the Old Testament is very harsh, no joke. It was to understand a different time, and this godly revelations, they would come and appear where it can be somehow understood. And gradually, as humanity hopefully purifies, also these messages will become more pure and more non-violent. After that, he went and prayed. He prayed 7 times, and in the 7th time, clouds came from the sea. Mount Carmel is right on the Mediterranean Sea. Clouds came, rain came, and the drought and hunger ended. Elijah was still persecuted. Now the king and queen were really angry with him, and they persecute him until they die. He tells them at a certain moment, look, you change your ways or you will die, and he actually dies in battle, the king, and his son after him also very quickly. And Prophet Elijah himself has a very unique mode of leaving this world. He's there with his disciple, Elisha, which probably also there's a way to pronounce it in English, which I'm absolutely not aware of. So his disciple, Elisha, they are walking together, they split the water, and then he tells his disciple, I am leaving. I'm going to leave this world. Now, make a wish. And Elisha says, I want to have double the power of your prophecy. And Elijah says, okay, I'm going to go up to heaven now in chariots of fire. If you can see that, you will have double my power. And if you can't, then nothing will happen. It was basically a test of clairvoyance. And indeed, chariots of fire came and took Elijah alive to heaven. And he is profited to come before the Messiah, before Christ, and to announce the Messiah, to announce Christ. And for this, the Christian texts associate him with John the Baptist. So in the text, Pistis Sophia, for example, is one of the more esoteric texts of Christianity. Christ speaks to his disciple and he says, I called upon the soul of Elijah to be born in John the Baptist. And he's still very, very loved and very known also in the Christian tradition. So this is, in brief, Prophet Elijah.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.